Have you ever wanted to write a CRAPS simulator but you lack the programming skills to get it done? Well, today I'm going to teach you how to write a CRAPS simulator with nothing but a spreadsheet. You don't need to know how to write a single line of code, you just need to know how to enter spreadsheet formulas. Let's write the simulator together today on JackAce. What up, donkeys? JackAce here with JackAce.com, where you talk about gambling, games, math, and stuff like that. And today I'm going to show you how to write a CRAPS simulator with nothing but a spreadsheet. You don't even have to have Microsoft Excel. You just need access to Google Sheets, which I'm pretty sure you do since you should be a YouTube subscriber. And if you're not already a subscriber, go ahead and click that subscribe button down here. And I've actually done this twice before, once live in one of my live streams, and also live for the CRAPS for the Cure fundraising event in November 2023. So if you want to follow along, go ahead and open up a Google spreadsheet and let's get started. What up, donkeys? JackAce here, and we are going to be writing a CRAPS simulator from scratch in a Google spreadsheet. So here we go. Let's give this an appropriate title: CRAPS simulator. And the name of our first worksheet is going to be called random. This is just going to hold the random values that we are using to seed our simulator. And the column header is going to be called roll index. And it defaults to having 1,000 rows, but we're going to add another 19,001 rows. So there's 20,001 total rows. And because there is a limitation in Google Spreadsheets where it can't have more than 1 million cells, I believe, we're going to delete all of the columns that we are not using. We have to be frugal about every cell that we use. But I do enjoy formatting, so let's do that. And I enjoy freezing the top pane. So in the first available cell, we are going to add a formula called rand between. And we want to pick a random number between 1. And how many ways can you roll 2 dice? That's right, you can roll it 36 different ways. So this gives us a random number between 1 and 36. We're going to copy and paste this formula on all 20,000 rows. And to make sure we have the right number of values, we can do a count of them. And that is the end of this first worksheet. We'll come back to it later. Now we're going to add another worksheet, and we're going to call this map. This is going to contain the mapping of each of those 36 values to the values of 2 individual dice. So let's add a column for that roll index. And we're going to have die 1 and die 2. And again, we're going to delete columns we're not using. And we're going to delete rows we are not using. So rows 38 through 1,000. We want to use all 36 values here. Do some quick formatting. And for die 2, this is just going to be 1 through 6 over and over. For die 1, we want 6 in a row of each. So let's make sure we've added these correctly. I'm going to freeze this top row. But if you add 1 through 6, you should get 7 plus 7 plus 7, that's 21. And we multiply that by 6, you should get 126. And that should be true for both die 2 and die 1. These both add up to 126, so we can be pretty confident that these values are correct. So now if we have a random value of 10, that's going to correspond to 2 on the first die and 4 on the second die. And now we are done with worksheet 2. We are on to our third worksheet, final worksheet. We're going to name this trial 1. The first column is going to be the roll number. And actually, before we start entering formulas, let's increase this to 19,001 more rows. We have a total of 20,001 rows. Let's really quickly freeze the panes. So here we have roll number 1. The next one's going to be roll number 2. We'll just do 1 plus 1. We're going to paste this formula all the way down. There's 20,000 rows. And we're going to copy these 20,000 values and paste them, special values only, on top of themselves. So here we've just eliminated the need to have a formula here. We want to reduce the number of formulas we have in the spreadsheet because every time you make a change, it's going to recalculate everything. And that's a problem when you have all these random values, etc. So here we go. Next column, roll index. So here, we're not going to put the formulas for those 20,000 random values. We're going to copy this. And we're going to paste, like we did before, paste the values only. So if I click on an individual cell, you'll see that there's no formula here. It doesn't say rand between. It just has a hard-coded value, the static value. Now we need to know what die 1 is and die 2. If you are a spreadsheet expert, you are familiar with the VLOOKUP function. And here we're going to look up B2. I'm going to anchor this down with a $sign. We're going to look up that value where in the map table, and we're going to anchor these down as well, AC. We need to look at column 2, that is die 1. And is this sorted numerically? Yes, true. And we can paste this all the way down. And the same thing is true for die 2, except we don't want to look at column 2, we want to look at column 3, index is equal to 3. Paste that all the way down. And let's do some spot checks. Here, the roll index of 20, does that correspond with 4-2? Let's go in the map. 20 corresponds with 4-2, so this looks good so far. 6, is that 1-6? 1-6. So we can be pretty confident that these formulas are correct so far. Do some more formatting. So now we have die 1 and die 2. But we need to know the sum. That's the most important thing. So we just want to add these two values. And for good measure, I'm going to anchor them down with $signs and fill them all the way down to the bottom. Let's do a spot check. 6 plus 5 is 11. 5 plus 1 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. 5 plus 6 is 11. Looking pretty good so far. That was easy, but let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's make it bold, and let's drop this guy back down to the original size. So this is pretty important. It's the value that we rolled. So now let's start making some tracking columns. So the first column we want to add is called is, COR. Is this the come out roll? And eventually we're going to have a formula for this, but the formula needs to look at the row above it to determine if this is the come out roll, but there's no row above this row. So for this first row, we're just going to hard code the value 1. 1 is going to correspond with true. 0 is going to correspond with false. And since this is the first roll in our simulation, it is always going to be a come out roll. Now, is this a come out roll win? Or is this a come out roll loss? This is also going to be 0 or 1, depending on whether this is a come out roll and depending on the sum. So to make this calculation for the come out roll win, we win if one of two conditions happens. It has to be the come out roll, and the sum has to be either 7 or 11. So here's the formula for that. If F2 is equal to 1, that means this is a come out roll, but we have to wrap this with and. If this is come out roll and E2 is equal to 7, but not just 7, we have to wrap this with an or. If E2 is equal to 7 or E2 is equal 11, then yes, this is a come out roll win. So that's what the 1 is. Otherwise, no, this is not a come out roll win. And we can fill this all the way down to the bottom. This formula is going to be the same for every row. Now for the come out roll loss, I'm going to paste this same formula because it's very similar. But now we're not looking at 7 or 11. We have a come out roll loss if we roll a 2, 3, or 12. So E2 is equal to 2, or E2 is equal to 3, or E2 is equal to 12. 2, 3, 12 is a come out roll loss. And we're going to paste that all the way down to the bottom as well. Now you may notice these are all zeros all the way down. That's because this formula is dependent on this value being correct. We haven't provided that for the rest of the numbers yet. So now if we don't have a come out roll win and we don't have a come out roll loss, we're going to do what? We are going to establish a point. And on consequent rolls, we may have an established point. So current point will be the point that we established in a come out roll on future rolls. So what is the formula for whether or not we establish a point? This is a little bit tricky, so just be patient and I will explain it in a second. If F2 plus G2 plus H2 is equal to 1, That means this is a come out roll and we have established a point. Because the sum of those three numbers is either going to be 0, 1, or 2. It'll never be 3. And we are only interested in the situation where the sum of those three numbers is 1, because that is a come out roll that did not get resolved. So in the case where we established a point, the point is going to be E2. Otherwise, 0. 0 meaning there's no point established. And we can autofill that down to the bottom. And here we can see we correctly discerned that we established a point of 10. And I'm going to add 2 more columns, but we're going to ignore them on this first row because they will always be 0 on this first row. So K is point made and L is 7 out. Now, for all 3 of these columns, it's always going to be false or 0 because we can never have a point on our come out roll, and we can never make our point on a come out roll, and we can never 7 out on a come out roll. So here I'm just going to hard code the value 0. We'll come back on the second row and fill in the actual formula. Now we can do a column here for pass line, win, loss, result, and running. So for the pass line, win, loss, result, this value is either going to be 1, -1, or 0. It will be +1 if we win. It'll be -1 if we lose. It'll be 0 if the roll is inconsequential. In this case, the roll is inconsequential, but we're still going to put in the formula. It's going to be G2 plus K2, right? Because if we make the point, we win our bet. And then we're going to subtract H2 and subtract L2. And we can fill this all the way down to the bottom. For the running total, this is going to be M2 for the first row. But for the second row, it's going to be the previous row, N2, plus the current row, pass line, win, result. And here we can paste this formula all the way down to the bottom. And actually, I'm going to add another column here. This is going to be total bets. For the first row, this is going to just be equal to F2. We can even hard code a 1 if we wanted to. For every other row, this is going to be the previous value for total bets plus the is come out roll for the current line. So we're going to increment this every time there's a new come out roll. And we can paste this all the way to the bottom. And I'm going to add 2 more columns, win percent and expected loss. We will be filling those out later. Let's do some quick formatting. Now we're ready for the rest of the formulas. Here's where it gets interesting. So now we need to figure out, is this a come out roll? And it's pretty easy if you think about it. If M2, so we're looking at the previous row, if that is not equal to 0, then yes, this has to be a come out roll. And we can fill that all the way down to the bottom. So this is saying we only have a come out roll if we had a resolution to the previous bet. So the formula for the current point is pretty easy. If F3 is equal to 0, that means this is not the come out roll. Then the current point is going to be I2 from the previous row plus J2. Otherwise, it's 0. The reason we add these two is because they will never both be non-zero. One or the other is going to be 0 when there's an established point. So here we can correctly say, yes, the point is still 10, the point is still 10. But here we need to figure out these 2 columns before the other columns start working. So what is the formula for whether we make our point? If F3 is equal to 0 and E3 equals J3, then yes, we made our point. Otherwise, 0. And fill that down to the bottom. So here you can see, yes, we successfully made our point. Now, how do we determine whether we 7 out? The formula is almost exactly the same, except we're not trying to make sure that E3 equals J3, E3 being the sum. We just want to see if E3 is equal to 7. right? Because that's when you 7 out. Hit enter and paste that all the way down. So now these other columns should be working as well. Let's start from the top and work our way down. Here's our first roll. We rolled a 10. That becomes our point. Point of 10, didn't hit it. Point of 10, didn't hit it. We rolled a 10. We made our point. We won $1. And now we have a running total of 1. Next roll is an 8. We have a point of 8. We roll a 10, 6, 11, all inconsequential. We roll a 7. We 7 out. We lose $1. And our running total is 0. So now all these other columns are correct. Everything is correct now. But we still need to populate these 2 columns. So let's do this. Our expected loss is going to be the negative value of our total bets, which is N2, multiplied by 0.0141. The house advantage of the pass line bet is 1.41%. So we can just paste that there. Now for the winning percentage, we want to do something a little bit different. We only want to calculate this win percentage when there's a resolution to our bet. So if M2 is not equals 0, then we're going to divide O2 by N2. Otherwise, just have a blank value. And this is the decimal value, but we need to convert this to percentage. And now let's scroll all the way down to the bottom. So here, let's just look at this. We've made 5,928 bets. We are currently down 3.98%. That's about 3 times worse than what we would expect. We expect to be down 1.41%. We are down 3.9%. But let's take another batch of random values. Here's 20,000 new random values. Go back to the roll index, paste special values only, and we'll see how these numbers change. This progress meter is showing our progress in the recalculation. This is why you don't want to have a lot of formulas in your spreadsheet. And now we're much closer. Our last resolved bet shows that we are down 1.57%. We would expect to be down $83, but we're down $93. So we're down a little bit more than what we would expect. And real quick, let me add some formatting here, some conditional formatting. If it's less than 0, displayed in red. Let's take some of these other columns. Let's add another rule. If it's greater than 0, let's make it green. For the loss and the 7 out columns, let's add a conditional format rule. If it's greater than 0, have it displayed in red. And for the point established and current point, let's add a formula. If it's greater than 0, display it in yellow. So let's take a look at this. Here you can see where you establish a point really easily. Here you can see where the roll is resolved. We won. That's the green. Here we have a come out roll of 7, we win. Here a point of 5 is established and we made our point. So we're batting 1,000 here. We're actually batting 1,000, wow. For the first 8 rolls. And let's scroll down to the bottom and see what we have. Again, we have minus 1.57. Actually, let's change this conditional formatting. If it's less than 0, let's give it the red background, and we actually want to put this higher. Let's put this guy on the bottom. And let's try another set of 20,000 random values. Paste special values. We'll see that recalculate. Looks like we're much lower than before. So now we're down again, 3.9%. So that's all good, but what if we want to visualize the data that we're looking at? So let's do this. Let's insert a chart, and we want this to be a line chart. The data range should be A1 to Q 20,001. That doesn't look too great. The x-axis should be the roll number. The series we're looking at should be the running total as well as the expected loss. And let's move this to its own sheet, and let's rename this Trial 01 chart. So here we can visualize that graph. You can see that we're underperforming. This red line represents the expected loss, so we're doing much worse than we would expect. Let's take another batch of 20,000 and let's paste it into the roll index column. Of course, we're going to paste special with the values only. We're going to watch it recalculate. So previously we were down 390, 3.9%. Now we're down 0.38, so we are overperforming. We should be above the trend line, but still lower than what we started with. We're down 23 units. So you can see we got up pretty high. We were up maybe 80 bets, 81 bets, 82 bets. And at the end, we were only down about 20 units. We would expect to be down about 85. So that's pretty much it, guys. This is how you can simulate just the past line betting. But if you want to simulate other things, you would probably have to add more columns trying to track the things you're trying to bet on. But this is a good starting point for whatever else you might want to simulate and track. I've shown you how to do this now for CRAPS. I've done this for Roulette as well. Hopefully, if you understand what has been going on here, you can modify this to suit your own needs. If you have a special system where you want to increase your bet on a loss or Martingale or whatever, you can incorporate that into this spreadsheet. It's just going to require widening this trial worksheet to add the columns that you need. And that's it. So now we've created the spreadsheet together. Hopefully you were able to follow along with no problems. If you weren't able to follow along, you can join my Patreon where I have this spreadsheet available to Patreon members. As a Patreon member, you will have access to a shared Google Drive folder where I have this CRAPS simulator spreadsheet. You can just make your own copy of the spreadsheet and run your own simulations and tweak it to your needs. And if you want to discuss the spreadsheet with other gambling enthusiasts, join my Discord. Here's a link, and there's a link in the description below. And while you're at it, you can check out my merch store at shop.jackace.com. There I have a ton of merchandise that gambling lovers will all enjoy. If you enjoyed this content, remember to like and subscribe. Always gamble responsibly. Never play crapless craps. And peace out, donkeys.